Where does learning about money begin? Well, hopefully it begins at the beginning of every Stacky Benjamin show, right? But I think it begins when we're much younger. Like I think about my own experience, and if I had had better mentors, better messaging, understood some of the little things, especially during the time that my brain was forming, I think that Joe wouldn't have gone through all the mess that I went through in the 1990s. Hey, everybody, I'm Joe Saul-Sehy, the host of the Stacky Benjamin Show. And on today's episode, we are talking to Karen Holland. Our team had the ability to be part of a challenge to raise money for a good cause. And we said, no matter what, we want our cause to be financial literacy. And by definition, if we can teach people about money at a younger age, that is also something that we want. And so we asked our good friend Ted Dintersmith, who is an expert in education. He and Sir Ken Robinson, of course, of TED Talk fame, one of the biggest TED Talks of all time, most watched. Ted was Ken's partner for a long period of time. Ted said, you have to talk to Karen Holland. And when we did, what we realized was the big inflection point is scientifically at about middle school age. And what I love about Karen is number one, her passion for teaching people money at a young age and also doing it for free for a lot of people. And also having the scientific background at giftingsense.org to dive into exactly how the human brain works and to get there. And so today, enjoy my discussion with the Karen Holland from Gifting Sense, teaching kids and adults, including me, a lot about money. And I'm super happy she's here with us, finally in Mom's Basement. Karen Holland joins us. How are you?
I'm great, Joe. How are you?
I am fantastic. As you know, we are so thrilled that we're partnering with you this month. And I'm thrilled that we're going to have you for the next half hour mentoring our stackers on helping kids learn better money habits. But let me start here. Let's talk financial literacy in kids. How big a mission is this, Karen? I mean, what's the scope of the issue?
Well, I don't want to be self-aggrandizing, but it's worldwide. It's worldwide. I mean, we develop our money habits, beliefs, our feelings about money very young. There's lots of studies behind this. The most famous one is out of Oxford. And yet we make our most consequential personal financial decisions and we acquire most of our financial knowledge and skills later in life, sort of, the earliest, maybe 18, 19. That gap, I call it a timing mismatch, creates a lifetime of completely avoidable stress for people around the world. And we think we have an elegant, scalable upstream solution.
And it's funny, back when I was a kid, I think about the resources we had available. Of course, we had a few in our community. I remember the people at my bank sitting down with me and talking to me about saving some money. That was cool. And they came to school. But now with these online resources, there's so much more cool stuff available.
Never in the history of the planet have we had more books, apps, programs. We've never had more information and it's never been more democratically accessible, right? Like, let's be clear, like most kids have on their wrist the power that, NASA had when it sent somebody to the moon. I mean, Hidden Figures is one of my favorite movies. So the issue is not a lack of information. The issue, in my humble view, is that we're not partaking of this knowledge. And why is that? And again, it's my view, but I've been doing this a long time. I mean, I can honestly tell you, I go to bed thinking about it and I wake up thinking about it because I think we're really close. I really believe financial illiteracy is a solvable problem. And who doesn't want to work on one of those in this day and age, right? We're awash in problems. Really, what can individuals do anything to help personally resolve? When we help children acquire not all the skills they need, but the basics during the time in their life when their habits and beliefs are being developed, we have vastly simplified the task of creating financially literate human beings. Because once you discover that you can get and use financial information to help shape your future, well, why would you ever stop? And by the way, subject mastery is how children acquire the appetite and confidence to want to know more about any subject. So it just baffles me why we treat personal finance differently. We do not start any other subject in the middle.
It's so funny. I remember we were talking to Bonnie Hammer, the vice chairperson of NBC Universal, about this idea of follow your passion. And her point is very similar about careers, that yours is about money. How can people be passionate about stuff if they haven't been exposed to it? Like
Exactly.
she thought she loved photography. Turned out she loved television. She didn't have the opportunity at 15 to work in television. It was later on. And had she just quote followed her passion, she would have ended up in the wrong spot. And we can do the same thing, Karen, with money.
I just, we have this thing in economics. I know economics is the dismal science, but I kind of love it. I'm just going to, lean into my interests. We have this thing in economics called a positive externality, and a positive externality occurs when the benefit of a purchase accrues to more than the purchaser. And the textbook example, also now a lightning rod, never used to be, is immunization, right? So you immunize a child and they don't get sick, but neither do their siblings, classmates, cousins, neighborhood friends, whatever. The positive externality of early financial education, in particular, if you ask me, middle school mindful spending lessons, is so massive, it defies description. I mean, well, think about it. If you enter high school feeling that you have agency, that you have the ability to get and use enough financial knowledge, know-how to shape your future, all that does is whet your appetite for more financial knowledge, right? So, right now those big three questions, the big three questions that they use all the time to assess if somebody's financially literate. Well, if you're a middle schooler who's been in a mindful spending workshop, no problem. If you don't know the answers to those questions, before you answer them, you're going to go to your magic box or somewhere else, and you're going to say, okay, let me think about this. If the interest rate is 2% and I have $100 after 5 years, they're not going to feel any pressure to answer a multiple choice question because somebody put three in front of them. They're going to have confidence in their ability to get and use the information they need to answer that question appropriately. This is what we want for today's school-age children. Financially literate people do not possess all the data points required to make good decisions from here to the end of your life in their heads. What they possess is confidence in their ability to acquire the information they need.
Confidence is so much of the battle in this game. It is not even a game. I guess I used the wrong word, but it is so much a big part of the battle. You've done a lot of research on this though, Karen, and you are very, very, very honed in on one age group in particular. You and I share a passion for this group of people. My spouse Cheryl and I met as middle school track coaches. These are such formative years. They were horrible years for me, which is why I know it's just it's a big time growing season for children. Why did you decide that honing in on middle school was really where this needs to happen most?
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, the Gifting Sense Project is a way for me to pay forward the lessons that I was taught as a young person. And in all sincerity, middle school is when my mother taught my sisters and I how to be wise spenders or think before we buy. I use mindful spending and thinking before buying interchangeably. However, I mean, unfortunately, my mother died very young, but she was a teacher. So I never had the opportunity to have this conversation with her, but I'm convinced she was aware of how much a developmental sweet spot middle school is for the exercise of pausing, gathering information, and reflecting before making a decision. And there's a ton of brain science to support this. We actually just released a blog post at giftingsense.org because people ask us that question all the time. So I mean, I'm not a brain scientist. So with that caveat in place, I'll just try to explain that we make all these synaptic connections when we're born. And early adolescence, roughly between the ages of 10 and 14, is when the brain starts to prune the connections that aren't used. So think of it as editing, right? When you cut away the stuff that's an excess, then the clear ideas really come through. So it improves your processing power. It's when the frontal cortex is under construction. So that's about impulse control, executive function. Middle schoolers have these massive dopamine receptors. They're really wired to experience rewards, and they're very socially aware. So all of this creates such fertile ground for all of these life skills, and that's what thinking before buying is, right? It's just asking questions, simple questions about typical purchases before you spend your money or anyone else's. But that's a life skill. Pausing, gathering information, and reflecting before you make a decision. It's not just a life skill for being good with money, it's a massively transferable life skill. So, middle school is a sweet spot. Having said that, it is like the adage for planting a tree. I mean, if you have somebody who's, just outside of middle school, do not panic, right? There is time. But if a fairy godmother landed on my shoulder, I mean, I would have a mindful spending thinking before buying workshop in every middle school around the globe.
Well, and as you were upstairs talking to mom earlier, OG and I were talking about how even though we're going to talk about the dim score next, but this works with 57-year-old men like me. This isn't just for middle schoolers. This is for all of us, I think. Just this little speed bump before we go and make the next board game purchase.
We do, we're permissionless, so we have no login, no registration, no paywall. So we have no idea who is using the dim score calculator. We do, however, see every completed calculation on the back end of the site. And we know adults use it all the time. Also, I mean, adults are forever coming up to us and saying, I really wanted those shoes, but the dim score was low. And I'm like, I am not the shoe police. Okay. But it's interesting. We hear that quite often, that it's helpful for everybody. I mean, I think fintech, of course, is not in and of itself a bad thing. It's hugely efficient and beneficial in many instances, but it has sped up consumerism, right?
Sure.
So we all benefit from just taking a beat.
Klarna, I'm thinking of, makes it really easy. Affirm makes it really easy. You're right. The friction is going away.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's a problem. I know they think they're solving a problem. My personal feeling is they're creating a problem. I mean, I use a lot of humor in workshops because this is what resonates with kids. And I'm like, a million years ago when dinosaurs roamed the planet and I was in middle school, I'm 59. This is how you went shopping. So I had a job at the Dairy Queen. I had to get my paper paycheck. I had to take it to the bank, stand in line at the bank, cash my check. I had to wait for the check to clear because if you didn't have enough money in your account to cover the check, which, Dairy Queen workers often didn't, you had to wait for the check to clear, go back to the bank, get your cash money. Okay. So now you actually have something you can spend. Then you have to go to a store when it's open, when you're not in school, which for me was like Saturday. You had to figure out how to get there. And then the store had to have what you wanted, right size, right color, right model, da 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 da. And then you had to have every dime on your person to execute that transaction, right? So retail scientists would call all of those friction points, I call them opportunities. They were all a chance for me to say, do I really want this? Is there a better option? What do I have to give up to get it? And those three questions, I mean, if I was going to leave people with one idea, and I know you share this, it's that personal finance is not an overly technical subject. This is not multivariable calculus. We are not doing liver transplants. It's about behavior and making choices. So those three questions, do I want this? Is there a better option? What do I have to give up to get it? They are the seeds of becoming good with money. And of course, the earlier you plant them, the stronger they will grow.
I think it's a fantastic aha for all of us, Karen, that sometimes with money, friction is your friend. Like this whole idea that creating friction. I know back when I was a financial planner, and it's been a long time, I found out for myself with my money because I'm a spender at heart. And I also, this worked very well with clients, was that as that banking system you described for the Dairy Queen on became more and more frictionless, and man, bam, you could get your money right away. And now, there's these companies that are hoping to be able to pay you every day as you work every day. So get your money even quicker so you can spend it quicker. I remember for me, I had to set up a bank account across town, and I had to make sure that I had no online access, that the debit card was cut up, that I had no access. The only way for me to get this money, I would use the frictionless way in. I would use direct deposit into that account, but then a ton of friction on me to have to go get the money. And it was funny because you think about it, if something's a real emergency, 25 minutes, who cares? You know, a 25-minute drive. If it's a real emergency, something's happened to one of my kids, of course I'm going to go get the money. But if it's the next board game, I'll think, you know what, 25-minute drive, I don't want to do that. Like, waste an hour round trip to go get my cash. It worked so well. And I still use that today where I try to set up these accounts in places. And now,
Interesting.
you know, different than having cash in my wallet, Cheryl and I have this discussion every week, more friction, where I have every dollar's accountable. My wife is not my boss. She's not the Joe police, but having to tell her that I went to Andy's ice cream 3 times last week is not something I want to do. So instead, I put everything on the card so that it is part of the money conversation. But I love that. It's funny because we're talking about friction, and I'm wondering, everybody has these pain points, right? They have these struggle points. For middle schoolers, as you're helping them make better decision, where do you see that their struggle points really are when it comes to these early spending habits they're
Oh,
developing?
well, I mean, it's fear of missing out, right? I
You
mean,
sure?
again, like,
Everybody
social
else has it.
media
Yeah.
in and of itself is not, but the problem is like, so what's the technical definition of fear of missing out? It's this feeling that others are living a better life than you or have access to more information than you do, which is categorically untrue. But of course, what does social media do? It promotes highlight reels, right? A question I ask kids in every workshop is, if you had a really frustrating day, if you failed a math test or didn't do well in a math test and spilt, hot sauce or a milkshake on a brand new pair of Jordans, would you put that picture on Instagram? And they're like, no. And I'm like, no one else does either. Right. So, of course, when you see everybody else's highlight reels, it invites an unfavorable comparison to your very real, naturally messy life. My father's 86. He has a great line. He says, if you think somebody has no issues, you know what that means? It means you're not friends. Because if you were friends, you'd know what their issues are.
They tell you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're struggling. They're thinking like, oh, everybody else is doing this. Everybody else gets, whatever they want on demand. There's no conversation or whatever. So we start every workshop. We poll the kids. Sometimes we do it anonymously. Sometimes it's just hands up. And we ask them, has anybody here ever received a holiday or a birthday gift and it wasn't quite what you were hoping for? What do you think the answer is?
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah, 93% of
Yeah.
kids,
Yep.
93% of kids. And I think it's closer to 100. Sometimes we do parent-child workshops, and the younger learners are a little reticent. They don't want to appear ungrateful. That ship has sailed by the time you're in high school, no problem. So then we explain, okay, well, here's the bad news, right? Even buying underappreciated gifts costs time and money. So you're disappointed, but trust me, so are your grandparents, aunts, uncles, and grandparents, because they put effort into executing that purchase and they worked hard for the money to spend. So what if there was a way that you could avoid disappointment, help your parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles stop wasting time and money buying you things you won't use or appreciate, which improves family harmony. Oh, and by the way, there's a side dish of like protecting the planet, because when you only buy what you use and appreciate, by default, you're lowering your carbon footprint and the number of items you put in the landfill. What if you could do all of that at once for free? And they're like, what? And I'm like, there's a way. It's called the DIM score calculator. Let's go. And then guess what? You can hear a pin drop in class when they're calculating the does it make sense score. And what the teachers are telling us is, this is so engaging, because when does a young person get to work on a problem that matters to them in real time in school? Not very often, right? So they're working on the question, should I buy this item or experience? And they're getting to experience in real time how applying a small amount of consistent thinking is so hugely beneficial.
Just a little speed bump, just this
A
little
tiny
speed bump.
Again, we use driving and sports metaphors. Like, we're like, when you're in the family car and it goes over a speed bump, does it stop you from getting where you were going? And they're
Not at
like,
all.
no. We're like, yeah, it just helps you get there safely. Same thing. We also compare it to driver's ed. We're like, okay, who's got a brother or a sister who's in driver's ed? So why are they having in-class instruction on driving before they take the family car out on the road. And it's because we want them to have these foundational skills and awareness, right? We want them to know, okay, this is what a yield sign looks like. This is how you put your blinker on. This is how you respond in this situation. So thinking before buying, mindful spending, using the does it make sense score calculator, it's spending it.
Walk us through the does it make sense score calculator. How does this contraption, this amazing, amazing gift to humanity, how does it work?
It is so straightforward. You type gifting sense, Gifting, and it's SENSE. So it's a word play, brain sense instead of CENTS, into any browser on any device with access to the internet. It is an online tool, but we're device agnostic. And you're going to see us right there. And you just answer the questions on the screen in front of you. So the first question is, are you interested in buying an item or an experience? And then you click on item or experience, and then you see secondary silos. So is it toys, sports equipment, electronics, clothes? Is it a trip? Is it an event? Would you like to bring home a pet? Pet is a hugely popular, does it make sense score
Is it
calculation.
really? Really?
Massive. And in fact, it was not one of the first ones we developed, but this is the beauty of digital, right? Like, people should not be afraid of digital. It's how we keep it free. It's how we keep it a free public good, because we mine the other category. And we were like, okay, kids are MacGyvering other all the time to calculate the DIM score for a pet. We need a pet's DIM score calculator. And in fact, that's one of the more consequential choices we help kids with, because of course, when they see a puppy in a pet store window that's, maybe it's $600, they have no feel for the fact that really they're asking for $26,000, because that's what they are.
All the food upkeep, all the
How long
stuff.
is it going
Yeah.
to live? It needs vaccinations. You have to clip its nails. You have to groom it. It needs a bed. It needs a raised feeder. You need flea, tick, heartworm medicine, all of these things. They have no feel for that. So one of two things happens. Either they discover everything that's involved, because what the DIM score calculator really does is it just reveals the phantom costs associated with very typical purchases, right? You want to go to a concert. Okay, the ticket price is just the beginning. What about safe transportation, snacks, and souvenirs, right? And on average, it can be like 4 to 1, the total cost of going to something. Like, World Cup is coming to North America. It is a huge topic of conversation amongst middle schoolers. And we're like, okay, so let's really sit back and think about what this involves. You've got, I think now we're 30 weeks out. So you've got time to put a plan in place, right? It's so epiphanous for them. They're like, right. And so again, two things happen. Either they're like, wow, this is a thousands of dollars proposition because I don't live in a town close to a stadium or whatever. And I'm not interested in dedicating that purchasing power towards that purchase. Or, wow, this is a thousands of dollars proposition, but it means so much to me. Here are all the ways I'm going to support our family being able to do that. Here's what I'm going to give up. Here are the purchases I'm going to forego. Here's how I'm going to do things so that we don't have to pay somebody else to do them. Either way, if they decide they don't want to do it, if they decide they do want to do it, it's great information. And that's what the DIM score calculator does. It gets everybody singing from the same song sheet, so that by the time you sit down to have a conversation with your parents or caregivers about moving a purchase that you're asked about from wish list to reality, you have done your homework and you've got all the information you need, so that when they ask you all the questions like set your watch, they're coming, like Christmas and taxes, right? Are you willing to spend some of your own money? How often you're really going to use this? Can somebody else in our family use it when you're done with it? You've got answers.
It's it's so funny. Think about Stackers. If you're a parent or you're an aunt or an uncle, or you're somebody who has neighbors or friends with kids, and they sit down with you and your middle schooler has a business plan versus I want new shoes. They say I want new shoes. There's eye roll. Here's my plan for getting it. And here's all the, oh my goodness.
We tell them it's their PowerPoint. This is your PowerPoint.
I could just
And
imagine.
parents, do not worry. Like, this is not an espionage tool, right? Because they can generate a shareable summary of all the math and thinking they've completed when they calculate the DIM score, including they can upload an image. And we're like, do not ask your grandparents for Air Jordans without putting a picture of the exact pair you want in there. You are mandating them to failure, right? Like, they have no chance. But what happens is Oftentimes they do decide that they don't want to proceed. So that's great. So families are reporting that they're getting fewer, better quality requests to spend because the kids go through this process and they're like, you know what, orange linen bell bottom pants. How often can I really wear those? I'm going to hold off.
It's
Right.
siphoning out all the bad ideas.
Totally. I mean, we just wrote a piece. We were asked for a piece about the holidays, and we're like the ultimate parenting flex for the winter holiday gift giving season is to get your kids to ask for better quality gifts.
Sure.
Because when they're asking for something that you have no problem getting behind, all the problems go away.
That's fantastic. You know how often it strikes me is something like gifting sense used to upgrade gifts on behalf of the middle schooler, because I'm remembering, there's these horrible bathroom books, and one of them was advice from 8-year-olds, Karen. And I remember one of the best piece of advice I've ever seen came from this book, and it was from Melissa, age 8, who said, if you want a kitty, start off by asking for a horse. Like that is that is
Interesting. I'm thinking about that. I mean, in all sincerity, I think that this is a common concern, right? A lot of principals, if they're trying to decide if they want to have us come to their school, they're like, listen, we don't want to put pressure on any of our parents
yeah,
for buying things that the family can't afford.
right. That was
And
my next question.
okay, so we're already there. I can tell you with a full and open heart because I've been doing this for, we're coming up on, we launched 10 years ago, but of course it takes like 18 months to get a site going. So I've been doing this for a very long time. Children are so aware of their family's financial situation, and they don't want to put pressure on their parents either. And getting the context for these decisions is so helpful. This is why they're stopping themselves. They're like, like every January, they're calculating the DIM score for Super Bowl tickets. Again, they really have no feel for what's involved here. And as soon as they do, they want to abandon ship. Like if you've calculated the DIM score, I hope you have. So you see the first half is sort of the numbers, right? Like how much money is actually required. And then the second half is what's required to execute the transaction. How much can I use and appreciate it? They want to abandon ship when they see the big number. And we're like, no, 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 just keep going because this is a construct for thinking and it's going to help you with all sorts of purchases, right? It ages up and down and across economic realities because you are selecting the purchase you're assessing. They really don't do it. They really don't. And for people who think that kids aren't aware of their family situation or the world at large, one of my favorite examples is we had an 8th grade boy calculate the doesn't make sense score for the purchase of Greenland.
Wait, what?
Right, because, Donald Trump's talking about buying Greenland.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, we're telling them this is a tool to help you understand if buying something makes sense. So, we don't put any parameters around it. The kids get to calculate. But I thought that, when that happened, I
Wow.
I
Wow.
was actually so happy that the teacher was a little miffed. He was like, "You're not taking it seriously." And I was like, "No, no. First of all, this is a geopolitically aware kid." But I'm like, "You know what? If it helps you make sense of the world at large, double win. Double
How
win."
about that? Well, and that's what I was thinking, Karen, is that, and this is what I like about the DIM score as well, is that this is not financial use only. You can see how you would use this in your everyday life as you grow up. And the number of times that I've either made purchases or made investments or made career decisions where I didn't take that little moment to calculate, does this make sense in a really meaningful way? Instead, just over feeling my emotion. And as you mentioned, a lot of that stems from middle school where that dopamine hit is huge. I want it and I want it now. So let's go get it. There's a big piece of me that still exists, but knowing how to knowing how to have that circuit breaker is important. But I think even equally, maybe not equally, but also very important is this idea of building your case. I mean, you're going to have to build your case with your boss. You're going to have to build your case with people on the PTA committee with you. You're going to have to build your case with interested, people in whatever community organization you're in. Like this idea of building a business plan around the thing that you want, and also considering everybody else's feelings in this and what they get. You know what? I love the idea of going to the Super Bowl. I want to go to the Super Bowl. Oh, that's how much it costs. My parents can't afford that. There is no way when I look at their side of the argument that it's going to help them. Why would they do? There's no way I can't do this.
This is what we're telling parents and school administrators. Context transforms conversations. It turns impulse into insight, and collected insights become confidence, right? When we feel like we don't have the time, we don't want to go through the whole rigmarole with our kids, so they ask us for something and we just say no. Even a yes without context is a missed opportunity, right? But when you give them context, which is just the information required to more fully understand the situation and why you're making a decision, it is such a gift, because I'm telling you, the kids, like, I see it every week. They're like, right. We developed a tool this past summer. We launched it during summer camps. We call it the Worth the Wait goal tracker. Okay, so it's a visual goal tracker. It looks like a thermometer. So you decide that there's a purchase you're jonesing for, and then we say to parents all the time, the quickest way to move a conversation from "can I have it" to "is it worth it" is to offer to split the cost with your young person, right? Because kids spend their own money very differently than how they spend ours. So let's use the example of a FIFA ticket, a World Cup ticket. They're very expensive. They're eye-wateringly expensive, but you've got time. So, like, not a knockout game in not a perfect seat, $400. So let's say your parents are like, fine, if that's really what you want to do, we'll split it with you. So you need $200 and you've got whatever, maybe you have nothing saved. So $200 divided by 10, that's $20. So you put this goal tracker up in the fridge, and every time you save $20, you get to color your way up until you've met your goal. We like it on the fridge because, there it sits.
I do
A lot
too.
of
Every
money
day.
conversations happen at the kitchen table. But here's what a mother shared with us. So her son brought this home from camp, and he's in the 8th grade and he wants a new laptop for high school. So they filled it out. It's got to save a lot of money for that laptop. 4 days later, he wanted pizza for dinner. And the mother said, that's $35 we don't have for that laptop. And she said, no eye rolls, ophthalmic calisthenics, none of that, no attitude, nothing. He was like, right. She called it a mic drop, and we actually used that image in a social media post. She was like, this piece of paper on my fridge has changed the family dynamic, because now he understands why I'm saying we're not going to have pizza for dinner, instead of just thinking like I'm no fun or I don't want to spend the money, or, he's like, right. $35 towards the thing I really want. No problem. Game changer.
I'm hoping, Stackers, that you are hearing the same thing that I saw and heard when Karen's and my mutual friend, Ted Dintersmith, said, you got to talk to Karen, because I told him about specifically what we wanted to help. And as I got to know Karen's mission, I was even more excited. But Karen, if anybody's going to put their money where their mouth is, they want to know about you and your organization, right? So let's talk about this mission. If people help us raise a bunch of money to help kids get more financially literate, how do you deploy that effectively?
Well, I mean, we're free public goods, so all of our tools are online, but we do deliver workshops in person. Right now, it's just in the greater New York City area and Toronto, but we run educator webinars. We go to a lot of conferences. We're preparing. It's my favorite fall weekend of the year, the Jumpstart National Educator Conference. It's November 7th, 8th, and 9th in Boston, and I really cannot wait to get there. What the donating to Gifting Sense does is it lets us keep this dream alive of permissionless, truly permissionless, and scalable early financial education. It keeps the dream alive and makes it scalable. So we would like to be able to have, right now I'm sort of the conduit through which everybody must pass. So we would be able to train people to deliver these educator webinars. We'd also be able to build other silos. We have a lot of demand. People want a DIM score calculator for first car, first apartment, post-secondary choices. The reason people would respond to the tool is we put tremendous thought into it. And it takes a lot of testing and development to build something that does all of what it's supposed to do and none of what it shouldn't, right? So we don't want anybody to feel bad. We just want them to think a little more. We want to give people helpful benchmarks. Like, if you'll notice, we do give kids parameters as to what most families will think is a lot or a little bit of money, but that ultimate decision is given to parents. That's where it should lie, right? That's their decision. But we help them understand, okay, well, here's really how much money you're looking at. So we're able to keep developing those tools, meet the demand, It's just, get it into every school. We've had a lot of success. We're growing. There's no reason why this can't be in every school. We're a free public good. We're a mission-driven organization. We do this one thing, but we do it well, and we want to do more of it, and we want to do it in more places.
And that is my goal, Stackers, is to help Karen extend that megaphone to more communities because it's so important. And clearly, as we said in the introduction, it's been time tested. Karen's idea is not new. She's been doing this for a long time, which is important to me that it's been tested. And then also, we've talked to Michael Gilmore before, the founder of the MAIA Awards, which is excellence in personal finance. And Karen being a multiple year recipient of these awards, that we've profiled so many of these wonderful people. Like, just having that also shows me that it's not just me. There's so many people, Karen, that appreciate so much what you do. It's got to be exciting though, still, every time you just get that pizza or or pizza or
You know
laptop
what? I'm
moment.
telling you, I love my work. You cannot beat the feeling of knowing that you've really helped a kid or their family. And it just keeps coming, right? Like, you think about what it is we're doing. We're teaching kids about money in a way that's immediately helpful. We're doing it when their default money habits and beliefs are being established, right? And we reduce family arguments. We are preventing waste. It really is the easiest way to be a planet protector. And it goes all the way. Like, people need two things really to create personal financial peace of mind. They need a social security number and an investable surplus, right? The investable surplus doesn't have to be big, but it has to exist. So an investable surplus comes from spending less than you make. Now, everybody knows this, right? Everybody knows they're supposed to spend less than they make. It's like, we know broccoli's good for us. Go to a
Right.
birthday party. Do you
I was
see a
about to
bowl
say
of
the same thing.
broccoli?
It's the same thing with weight, right? I know that if I
Exactly.
consume fewer
Exactly.
calories than I expend, then
Right.
bam.
Wait a minute. Yeah. Oh, how does that work? Okay. We know that. What the issue is, how do I live the life I want and spend less than I make? That is the crux of the problem, right? So how do I have the shoes I want? How do I have the house I want, the car I want? How do I send my kids to the school I want and still create that investable surplus? And honestly, thinking before buying is a really easy way to do it, because 2/3 of us buy things on the regular that we do not use or appreciate. And if we can do nothing other than stop that, we're on the way to creating that investable surplus.
If you want to help with financial literacy, Karen's 501c3 nonprofit is called Gifting Sense. And you can be a part of this challenge that we are in all month long. Listen to this. We talked about giving. Well, first, go to stackybenjamins.com/gifting hope, which is the name our stackers picked for this month's challenge, because we are gifting hope to parents that their kids will make maybe better decisions than they made. But every time you give, you can also win, because we're doing this in partnership with Daffy, which is a donor advised fund company. They are partnered with iHeartRadio. And listen to this. Every time you give, not only are you helping kids learn financial literacy, you're also put into a competition to get tickets to the iHeart Music Festival, an all expense paid trip to see your favorite bands. So you can gift as many times as you want, and every time you'll get a new entry. But if you go to stackybenjamins.com/gifting hope, you'll find out how to help and how to help us beat Joel and Matt and the How to Money podcast. There's a bunch of other podcasts that are taking part in this. Who cares about them? We got to just beat Joel and Matt. Let's be clear.